Why would Israel seemingly risk a confrontation with a NATO member over an abandoned Syrian airbase? Because this isn't just about the airbase, it's about who gets to shape the region after the fall of Damascus. Turkey was a primary actor in the overthrow of Assad and capitalized in the aftermath extraordinarily quickly. They are the main outside power behind the Jolani regime, helping train and rebuild the HTS military while maintaining its own influence inside the country. HTS Syria is increasingly tied to Ankara economically, politically, and militarily. Israel has spent the same period doing almost the opposite with a very different method for control. Although both Israel and Turkey participated and benefited from the destruction of Syrian military infrastructure, Israel has maintained that approach, occupied more Syrian territory around the Golan, checkpoints, and insisted that no military power can establish itself close enough to challenge Israeli freedom of action. Turkey's influence has taken the appearance of a reconstructionist approach rather than force, and therefore creating dependency. So why strike an unmanned airbase in northwest Syria? Israel struck the base after a Turkish delegation reportedly visited it, claiming that Turkish forces were preparing to deploy there. Even Zionist Tom Barak disputes that assessment, saying US intelligence did not find evidence of any immediate deployment. He's even suggested that Netanyahu may have been baiting Turkey into a confrontation before Israel's October election. Likud is struggling in the polls, making another security crisis politically useful to a government that has built much of its legitimacy around Netanyahu's image as Israel's indispensable defender. There is another interesting detail, a piece written by Shay Gal in the outlet Israel Hayom, founded by Trump's megadonor Miriam Adelson, has openly discussed the calculation that Israeli forces could potentially strike Turkish troops in Syria without automatically triggering NATO's Article 5, because Turkey's collective defense guarantee does not simply follow its soldiers across international borders. The article's argument is essentially that Israel should destroy Turkish military infrastructure, and if Turkish personnel are hit outside of their own soil, then NATO isn't obligated to get involved. So they really have been thinking seriously about this. So what does Israel want? Israel's regional strategy has always depended on overwhelming military superiority and on surrounding states being weak enough that Israeli power cannot seriously be challenged. Nobody is allowed a functioning military, and nobody is allowed a meaningful defense apparatus. The expansionist idea of Greater Israel sits within a broader vision of securing Israeli control in strategic depth across the region, and Turkey's growing influence in Syria cuts directly across that. Ultimately, both Turkey and Israel operate within the broader US framework of preventing Syria from once again emerging as a fully independent and autonomous state. Between them, however, there's a clear rivalry driven by their competing regional ambitions. The Greater Israel project requires the neutralization of all obstacles that could rein in their broader objectives, including NATO members.